UCC laws where you can jumble all of these things together. Have you noticed that movies now are showing robots needing to have rights, that robots are sentient beings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So imagine they have a robot with the serial number. That serial number is going to be a social security number, just like you. You will be on the same status. If this keeps going, you will be on the same status as a robot when they create a robot. You'll just be a product. So it's kind of like black and white. I said in another video that the marriage license came about because if you intermarriage. So if two white people got married, they have every right to. If two black people got married, this is under slavery, right? If two black people got married, white people considered that as animal husbandry. So they didn't care. But if a black person and a white person got married, they needed permission. This is where the marriage certificate comes in. So people think that the marriage certificate brought black people up to their white people level, but what it really did was take white people down to black people level. So now they're doing that with humans and robots. You think that they're bringing robots to a human level, but in reality, they're bringing humans down to robot level, down to machine merchandise product level. That they're really saying that if a robot is sentient, then that means you're not sentient. You can't be. You know what I'm saying? And this is their ways to control you because they think you're a fool. But it's really just them. Whatever. It won't last. They know they're just fighting the light. Darkness can never outdo the light. So, and we can see it. It's evident every day. But this is Uniform Commercial Code. This is where the ICC, the International Criminal Court, comes in, and this is the marketing ploy. When they have Naomi Russell, what was that model in Hollywood? Naomi Campbell. If you go to YouTube and you look up Naomi Campbell at the ICC, they're talking about she's snitching on a dude named Frank. I think his name is Frank Taylor or something from some place in West Africa, which is again, they're setting up this whole charade, bro. This whole charade. And Naomi Campbell, I don't know how much she got paid to do that, but she got put on there, and they're putting this whole show. They're trying to gain jurisdiction. But they need your help. You feel me? So they're literally showing you their quote unquote power over you, because this is going to be the new law for the new world. The United Nations will be the new government. The ICC will be the new law. And then whatever currency come up with, whether it's Bitcoin or another one, will be the new currency. All right, so this is why understanding the roots of all this is very important. So now this ideology and this thinking is what is being brought to, or what was being brought to the whole world. So with Eritrean history and the scramble for Africa, this is what was. And remember, things were developing. They're developing things in time. You know how, like, you create a skyscraper. If you had a skyscraper back in the day, if you see there's famous pictures with all those guys, like literally hundreds of feet up in the air, how many stories, and they're not tied off. They don't have any harnesses or nothing like that. They're literally on a piece of steel eating lunch like 500 feet in the air. It would never be done today. You know what I'm saying? But they updated their practices. They're updating their motion, the way they move. That's constantly being updated. So when they did the first scramble for Africa in in the 1800s, it doesn't compare to their game plan today. So again, now we can go back to Eritrean history. Now, we said Eritrea was made January 1st, 1890. It was created because they had already created the nation state, and they found a new system and to bring in a new world. All of this is, by the way, tied to the third dimension of time and the fact that we're going from Pisces to Aquarius. Pisces, you can consider it winter. And Aquarius, which was started in 2012, consider that Easter. So that was the beginning of spring. So in essence, they want to kind of continue winter into this new spring that we're getting. So when they came through, they created their nation states. Oh no, back to 1890. 1890, January 1st, 1890, Eritrea was created. Ethiopia created 1896. Now, so Ethiopia was created 1896. They gave up Eritrea officially. They didn't sign off on Eritrea because they owned Eritrea and they were giving it or gifting it to Italy. No, they were scared, or I shouldn't say they, Menelik was vying for control and he was cooperating. He's just a cooperator. He's a Stephen and Django. So he signed off whatever documents they wanted. They got officially put into the UN Charter, right? And then Italy went to work in Eritrea. So when Italy went to work in Eritrea, they built it all up. They found the one place, they found the spot in Eritrea where they could live. Literally, Asmara is on top of a mountain. I'm in Eritrea right now, which is why I decided to do the video right now. Eritrea is on top of a mountain. So even though it's extremely strong sun, once you get on the mountain, the air is all cool. So they could deal with it. They could handle it. They built it up. They built factories. They had a zip line going from Asmara to Massawa to the beach to send materials up and all type of shit in a fast order. They were building it to occupy. They were completely building it to occupy, not knowing that the British were setting them up for global order, and they needed this historic victory for Ethiopia to win, which was tied to what? To World War II. Remember, World War I is them getting the Turks out of Germany. That was versus the Ottoman Empire. World War II was about getting the National Socialists, the Nazis, and World War I, excuse me, let me clarify something. World War I is about getting the Ottomans out, but it was also about getting rid of the czars in Russia. The czars in Russia still had a czar is divine right to rule. So they had to get the czars out of Russia, which is why they created communism, which is a whole nother story. But this is why they created, well, it's part of this story too, but they created communism for World War I. There's a famous picture in a book called Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, where they talk about how J.P. Morgan and Wall Street funded Karl Marx. And the reason why they funded Karl Marx, because Karl Marx was coming from a communistic still point, a communism place where communism is basically the government dictating what it is you will own physically. If you have 5 kids, but you're poor, you're going to get that mansion before this one guy that's rich. You know what I'm saying? It's that type of thinking. So that's what J.P. Morgan and all them were saying. Like, once we own the government, we want people to submit to us. So why not create a government or a form of government in which there is no hierarchy through money? Because even though we are money today, and hierarchy through money serves us today, we will own the government eventually. And eventually, I'd rather there not be a hierarchy, because I'd rather get rid of that money, even if I could, after I win. You see? So, and the reason why they set it up the way they set it up is because when they understood, remember, they understood that we were going through the third dimension time. The Sphinx has the head of Aquarius and the body of Leo. They're creating world doctrines that they can control, that coincide with the astrology. The famous astrological calendar of Dendera is in the Louvre in France. I have a video on it. I literally went to Dendera Temple and saw the Therify bulbs, and I have a picture and a video of the Dendera section of the roof. On the roof at the top of the temple, they have a thing cut out. Napoleon cut out the calendar. I'll try to post a calendar on both my TikTok and the YouTube, the astrological calendar of Kemet. He cut that out, and it's at the Louvre right now. So they know that Aquarius is decentralization. Aquarius has many characteristics to it. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus. Think of Uranus as a son of the sun. So like a son that hasn't quite gotten there yet. So whereas it's kind of like Uranus is kind of like a prince in a way, in a royal court. So, well, I don't know if I should say that. I shouldn't say it like that, but think of Uranus as 5th house and 11th house. So they're opposites of each other, but they mirror each other. They're true opposites. They're actually, it looks the same, but it's different, like a mirror image. It looks exactly the same, but it's completely different. Actually, it's actually exact opposite. So, whereas the king is the center of the kingdom and everybody surrounds him in his regalness, with Uranus, it's not. Everybody's surrounding Uranus, but he's actually serving you. He's not king, and he's not dictating to you. He is a reflection of you, and that's how he serves you. So he's not going to tell you, you need to do this. If you're doing wrong, you need to do this, do that. He's going to hold up a mirror to you, show you that it's you, and then you have to finish it yourself. All right. It's kind of like, imagine it's like this. Imagine you're a king at a royal party, right? You're king of this place. Everybody knows you have whatever, like you're the king. Everybody respects you. They know that if they violate, you're gonna kill them and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever, right? But at the same time, you're at a party. So the king is cool. The king is like, hey, what's up? Oh, hey, peasant, here's $1 million. Hey, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's cool because he's with those people. He's comfortable. He's the sun, S-U-N, that's the sun. He just gets to be regal. Uranus is different. Uranus is like a waiter, but imagine like a server or a waiter at a restaurant, but there's a big party, but you're the waiter. So now, even though the waiter has nothing to do with the party, in this moment and remember, Aquarius is the water bearer, right? The water bearer is God's love, and God's love is information. Aquarius is not a water sign, it is an air sign. So he's really pouring out information and knowledge to you. You're getting God's knowledge, and that is sustaining you literally in love. It's making your heart at ease because you understand you have the connection to the creator. So which is why the Aquarius is the magician and the one. The magician is, so Neptune and Pisces is two, man and woman, duality. Aquarius is the one, right? This is why you find people that have strong Uranus, Aquarius, or 11th house in their chart. They look isolated, or there's people surrounding them, but they're the focus of attention. Kind of like the sun, but not quite. They might be getting disrespected because Aquarius, being the water bearer, he's going around the table. He's a server. He's going around the table, pouring water into everybody's cup. Some people are going to say, thank you, that appreciate it and show them love. Other people are going to throw rocks at him or throw food at him and be like, hurry up, give me my drink, blah, 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 disrespectful. Because they see him as a waiter, not understanding that that waiter has complete power over you in that moment. In that moment, he can hold that water, like, I ain't giving you nothing. Now what? So Uranus and the sun are completely opposite. They're mirror images of each other. They function, they look the same. Like once you go to a mirror, you know, it looks just like you, but it's exactly the opposite of you. And the opposite of you looks exactly like you, even though it ain't you. It's, as a matter of fact, nothing could be further from the truth. You know what I'm saying? Nothing could be further from the truth. That mirror is not you whatsoever. And yet you go to it every day to reflect on yourself. See what I'm saying? This is your Uranus. So that's what they're doing. They're serving you now. They're trying to be Uranus right now. They're serving you with all this stuff. When they come in, try to give you foreign aid, and they come in trying to blah blah blah. They're trying to be Uranus, even though they're really being the sun. But to them, they're lying in their behavior, and they're being smart, and they're like ego. You know what I'm saying? But it's not going to work that way because they don't have it in their heart. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, not that Uranus represents the heart technically, but you get what I'm saying. So, back to Eritrean history, Italy came in 1890, started building it up. World War I happens. Remember, Britain is kind of running the show. Britain is dictating. This is why the sun never sets on the British Empire. Right? Britain is dictating how this thing kind of goes. So the lesser occupiers like Italy, like Germany, even though Germany plays a part, Italy played a part, France played a part, is really being kind of dominated by Britain. But France is there too, which is why they're one of the 7 members of the head of the UN. Russia, China, France, Britain, America, and whoever else, probably Germany or somebody. But Italy starts building up Eritrea. World War I happens. They need to get the czars out of Russia, and they also need to get the Ottomans out of Germany. They need to get rid of this Ottoman Empire mess or nightmare of theirs, right? They do that. And by the way, if you look up, what's the dude's name? If you go to the DC courthouse in Washington, DC, if you go to the courthouse, there's a statue where, I don't know if you would know, there's a door, the main entrance to the door. On the exact opposite side of that building is a statue. That statue is of a man named Pike. What is his first name? Albert Pike. His name's Albert Pike. Albert Pike was the head of the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana, all right? He wrote of 3 wars, World War I, II, and III. He wrote it to a guy named Mazzini, who was another Mason, and Mazzini created the Mafia. The Mafia were the 5 families of Italy that came over to do the dirty work of the Illuminati, the arm of the, well, I guess you could, yeah, I guess they're kind of like the Crips and the Bloods, like an organization that were manufactured, kind of like Blackwater in Iraq, how you need non-government contractors to do certain things. So they used the Mafia like that, and they needed officially affiliated people. That's why these structures were maintained so long. Eventually they stopped needing them, which is why they got rid of them. So Albert Pike wrote a letter to Mazzini of the 3 world wars. He said, we're going to get the czars out of Russia, World War I, we're going to get the Nazi socialists, we're going to destroy the National Socialists, which is what Nazi is, and then we will, and then there'll be the great war between Christianity and Islam for Satanism to manifest itself into the world, literally. Now, they couldn't prove the original document. That original document was lost. The only reason why it carries so much weight is because that document was printed in a book or that supposed letter by Albert Pike was printed in a book before World War II. It was printed in a book before World War II. And so that's how they know it's real, that someone knows that there was a great grand plan for all of this stuff. So, yeah, Albert Pike, yeah, so they knew all those, the World War I, World War II, and World War III. So now, World War I, get rid of the czars. World War II, get rid of the National Socialists. World War III is going to be what they're doing in Israel and Palestine right now, which is probably going to be break the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock is Solomon's Temple. Solomon's Temple is the Dome of the Rock. It's the exact same spot. And Solomon's Temple is Solomon's Temple, but for Islam, the Dome of the Rock is where the Prophet Muhammad ascended into heaven. If you crack that, it's over. It's over. There ain't nobody gonna stop. There's gonna be bloodshed beyond belief. It's gonna be World War III if they break that, which I think that's what they want to do once they're ready, you know. But we'll see. So Italy was in Eritrea. World War I is taking place. When was World War I? It was early. I forgot exactly years, but I remember World War II is where Britain came and kicked Italy out of Eritrea officially. This is after Ethiopia was formed in 1896, right? And they were going on with Menelik's son. They took Menelik's son, brought him to London, tried to train him. Victoria wrote about how sad and depressed he was, and he died in England depressed. He was like 19. He basically felt colonized. He thought he grew up being told, you're a king, you're great, you're gonna rule the whole Ethiopia, blah, blah, blah. So Menelik's creation that he created, his son literally died of depression, right? So was it really worth it for him? I don't know, whatever. This is where Haile Selassie comes in with his aunt and starts to claim the rights to the throne. Remember, Menelik's son was trying to become Muslim. Like Menelik, back then you had to go to a priest to get anointed, kind of like Alexander of Macedon or Alexander the Great, where he went to the priests of Egypt to get anointed, because the priests of Egypt were the ones, everybody was listening to Egypt in terms of what God was. And they were believing in a black God and praying to a black God. Like the Black Madonna. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into it. But that's in reverse now. The Ethiopians and Eritreans, whoever, at that time, all of them people really believed in Christianity and were going into Jesus Christ. So they had to go to certain churches to get anointed and say, it's official. He is the God, one of the leaders that was meant to be, and blah, blah, blah. So Menelik's son went through that process, but tried to reverse it and try to now say he's Muslim, he believes in the Prophet, he's son of the Prophet Muhammad, blah, blah, blah. They X'd that out. They wasn't about to let Ethiopia become Muslim. They brought him to Italy to retrain him to be a Mason and all that. He died, boom. And then Haile Selassie came, and his aunt took power at first, and then Haile Selassie eventually took power. So Italy had a beef because they lost to Menelik and them. So they said, we're not going to go down in history by losing to these niggas. That's not going to happen. So, and Britain allowed it this time. They came back. Italy came back. They conquered and colonized. People like to say they didn't colonize. No, they colonized. They were there for 5 years in your mouth. They colonized. Haile Selassie fled to Britain, did his deal. Britain came in, got Italy out of there, got Italy out of Ethiopia and Eritrea. There's a famous book called I Didn't Do It For You. It's a book on Eritrea where this old Eritrean lady saw a British soldier in Eritrea. And Eritreans were supporting the British at the time. The British used to drop paperwork from planes, like papers on planes, as like, listen, help us. The Italians, fuck the Italians, blah, blah, blah. And they were writing it in our language and going around like in the villages and the main cities and dropping a million papers from planes, and it would spread out everywhere, and people were getting these messages like, oh, okay, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. There was no internet, you know what I'm saying? It's the 40s. So there was a famous book called I Didn't Do It For You, where an old Eritrean lady was celebrating, you know, when they do the sound, right? They're doing that sound, and she's celebrating him, like coming, like she's seeing him while she's walking, she's seeing him walking. So she's celebrating him, and he tells her, I didn't do it for you, nigga. Exact words. Called her a nigga and all that. And he's right. He didn't do it for us. He did it for this grand ploy for world domination. That's why he did it. But thanks for your service. You know what I'm saying? We needed you right then. Anywho, so now World War II, they getting rid of all the Nazi supporters. Italy, remember, Italy was supporting Germany. Italy is supporting Adolf Hitler, right? This is why Britain and Italy are also at war. But Italy felt betrayed, which is probably why they joined Germany. Once they figured out what the fuck was going on, they're like, man, fuck, y'all violating us on the low? Y'all violating us on the low for real? Man, fuck that. We with Germany now. F that. You know what I'm saying? But Britain came in, boom. Remember, Britain got the Rosetta Stone. They got their technology is growing. They got teams in Europe. You can look up William Flinders Petrie and other Egyptologists. You know, Egypt has its own science, has its own goddamn science. You can look up William Flinders Petrie and these other people that were stationed in Egypt to just draw all this info out, right? And that's why Britain's technology was bananas, right? So Italy got whooped in Ethiopia. They created, after all that took place, it was decided, remember with the UN, they were deciding, well, you know, hey, these people that were colonized, which is the whole damn world, by the way, the sun doesn't set on the British Empire. That's such an important statement. These people, they have the right to decide for themselves if they want to go back to their old way of living or if they want to continue this whole new nations that we've created. So this, for Africa, set up the Organization of African Unity, the OAU. This Organization of African Unity was centered where? In Ethiopia. Why? Because Ethiopia was marketed as not colonized. So why not have the Organization of African Unity on the one place that was able to defeat white people, right? And this is where our black people's pride and ego came into play. We fell right for it, right for the game, the switcheroo, the misdirection. So this Organization of African Unity turned into the African Union eventually. And it was determined at the Organization of African Unity that the lines would stay, that we will keep the lines. This is all, you know, staged, set up, but it was said that we would keep the lines, which would mean you will keep Eritrea. Eritrea is involved in these lines. But, you know, things would transpire differently. So OAU comes up with the plans that we're going to keep these created lines. Now, the UN was holding meetings on their ideas of what should happen to different people, and they're voting. They would have the nations themselves vote. So there was certain there was a platform at the UN for people to have grievances about whatever was taking place. So even though the Organization of African Unity was saying, we're going to keep the lines, Ethiopia could put in a grievance at the UN and say, well, no, Eritrea historically is ours because we did, you know, and there's a Bevin Forza plan, which had Israel, Libya, Eritrea, and some other countries all lumped into this one, I guess you could call bill, like in America, There was a United Nations Charter bill, whatever you want to call it, the Bevin Forza plan. And this is where Eritreans owe a great debt to a man named Senator Saint Lot, who went against, he's Haitian, he's a Haitian man, went against his president. His president told him to vote yes. He went up there in front of everybody, voted no, because it would have split up Eritrea, would have split up Libya. And he was like, nah, we not going for it. We not going for it. This is why Gaddafi and Isaias were so close, because they know that they were part of the same scenario. Libya and Eritrea's their fate was tied into that one vote. So and Gaddafi knew it. So even though Gaddafi was a lot older than Isaias, he always loved Isaias. He said like you beautiful, I love you. You know what I'm saying? If you see the videos, he's showing so much love, right? But also because of how Isaias' stance is, which is like, we ain't going for none of that. We ain't going for none of that. You come in here, you're a foreigner, you need a visa to come in, you need a visa to leave the city. You come to the capitals, you need an entry visa to come into Eritrea, to the capital, and then you need a visa to leave the capital city to go to a village if you want to go. We need to know everything. We ain't going for it. Ain't going for it. So, but this is because, back to Senator Saint Lot. So Senator Saint Lot, when this plan was being put up, remember, they had different member states, all different. So like the people that were voting on it, there was a group from Pakistan, there was a group from Haiti, a group from here, a group from there. They would make sure that they would have other states that were random. In their eyes, that was true. Then the truth, well, you had a better chance of the truth coming out. So anyway, Senator Saint Lot went against his president orders and voted no. And he vetoed that bill. And he got murdered a week later. So Eritreans owe him a great debt, because if it wasn't for him, there would be no acknowledgement of Eritrea. Eritrea would have been erased forever right there. But he did what he did. He helped, he was a man. They should make a statue of him here one day. But he stood alone. I really, it's men like that you truly, truly have to admire and respect. It brings a tear to my eye for real, because he didn't have to do all that. He didn't have to sacrifice like that. And he was alone. He stood alone. He didn't care. Everybody's like, no, don't do this, do that. He's like, fuck all that. Fuck all that shit. So, boom. So that happens. Eritrea gets its independence, but they come up with another. See, what happens is Haile Selassie in Ethiopia became landlocked. If they don't have Eritrea, they became landlocked. They already gave up Djibouti. So if you don't know, Djibouti is a 99-year lease signed with France that Menelik signed. Menelik signed a 99-year lease, because when Eritrea was being formed, Ethiopia only had that little, what Djibouti is now, they had that little spot for a port. They kept that spot for a port. But then Menelik signed that off, 99-year lease. And then when he signed that off, 99 years later, the French who were occupying that port told the people of Djibouti, what do you want to do? Do you want to be free? Do you want to go back to Ethiopia? They're like, we want to be free, probably, whatever. We're different. You know what I'm saying? And they were different because there was no Ethiopia anyway. They don't know Ethiopia anyway, because there is no Ethiopia, because it's a manufactured thing. So then this is where, so when Menelik signed that, he didn't know he was sealing his fate. He made Ethiopia landlocked. So in Haile Selassie's eyes and his thinking, he's like, man, I want to take Eritrea. I want Eritrea to be ours. So even though this plan comes up, they make a separate situation where they say, hey, Eritrea will be independent under the Ethiopian crown. So imagine, while they're taking God out of government, they're selling you that Haile Selassie is has divine right to rule. Like they're keeping his kingship alive for the moment to get you to buy in. They don't get rid of it later. Now Ethiopia has a prime minister and a president. Now, just like it's kind of so foolish. It's like the Democratic Republic of Congo. What the hell is a democratic republic? What are you talking about? Those are two opposite terms. A republic is rights. Democracy is privileges. So this shit is all like I feel like they're doing it just to mock you. I mean, they are doing it just to mock you. I mean, and the fact that people don't, like, I just can't believe that people don't catch it. Like, I don't get it. Don't get it. Anyway, so Haile Selassie kept his kingship, quote unquote. And so they started wiggling in. They were saying, oh yeah, because of the plan that, Senator St. Lot died for, you're right, Eritrea should be separate, but it's too fragile. They're coming up with excuses. It's too fragile to be left alone. So we're gonna, put it under the Ethiopian crown, but it'll have its own parliament though. It'll have its own Congress though, right? And the first session of that Congress was it being disbanded, straight up disbanded. And the national language, Amharic, was made the national language in Eritrea, which is not spoken of in Eritrea, yada, yada, and all the things came out. And the main issue that Ethiopians ran into was that Eritrea is exactly 50% Muslim and exactly 50% Christian. So they decided to do divide and conquer and hit the Muslims first. But this started, what they don't understand is that we're Eritrean. The Muslims and Christians are blood related. You're killing a Muslim, but you're killing my cousin. Stupid, dummy, idiot, moron, goofball. James, who's the head of the Sopranos? James Goofall-Feeney? What are you talking about? Anyway, they were hitting the Muslims, but at first it was working. Plus, there's no communication and all that. So at first it's working, but eventually all the Muslims see what's going on. This is when Idris Awate killed. He fired the first shot of the revolution, or he is celebrated in Eritrean history as the first man to shoot back. There were some Ethiopian soldiers that wanted to take all his livestock and take his farm and shit like that, and they were outnumbering him, but he went, got his gun, and he shot them all up. It was like 10 of them or something, killed everybody. He was on the run from then on, and he formed a little group, and they was just basically hitting Ethiopian targets, taking their stuff, hitting Ethiopian targets, taking their stuff. Eventually he got killed. But this created the ELF, Eritrean Liberation Force, which was was founded by Muslims. So later on, the EPLF would come. This is the current Isaias and them, which was the number one dude was Muslim, the number two dude was Christian, right? So they were mixing it up on purpose to have everybody join. There was like basically an update of the revolution, right? ELF and EPLF went to war with each other eventually, but once the EPLF was shown to have complete dominance, most of the ELF members either left, fled, or they joined EPLF. Which was around the time when Haile Selassie's fall was in 74? It was a 30-year war from 1961. This is when Idris shot the first shot in 1961. And then 1991 is when there was the last shot. There was a 30-year war. So it was the longest armed struggle with the victory. There is no armed struggle with the victory in the world outside of Eritrea. So the first was 16 years, so 77 then. This is when Mengistu came. This is when Haile Selassie was people weren't respecting them. They were already, the Americas and all that were taking God out of government. Russia was using Eritrea and Ethiopia because Eritrea was a listening station for the Americans, because America was supporting, British and America were supporting Haile Selassie's rule. So OAU, so Eritrean parliament was disbanded, and Eritrea eventually got absorbed by Ethiopia, and the line was literally erased. So Eritrea is the only African country to be colonized by another African country. So Eritreans became Ethiopians and unified on paper, but underneath, it was more divided than ever. They were killing Muslims because most Eritreans were revolting. Not revolting, but there were certain Eritreans that were coming in and saying, no, this isn't right. The kids mainly. So when I say the kids, that means my mother's generation, my father's generation. Because my mother and father wanted separation from Ethiopia. But my grandfathers, their generation, they were like, who cares? It doesn't matter. They're like us. At least they're not Italy, but they didn't get what was happening. They didn't understand that, but these motherfuckers keep selling out, keep selling us short, trying to take our power when they didn't even fight for real. They didn't even struggle the way we struggled. You know what I'm saying? Our struggle was different. And they're selling out left and right every day. You know what I'm saying? And when the boy comes and tries to cause havoc here, they run. So F them. You know what I'm saying? This is my mother's and my father's generation. So this was the issue, what was going on. So Idris started in 1961. Eventually, the Ethiopian soldiers just started killing everybody. Christians, it didn't matter anymore. Christian, Muslim, rape, murders. I mean, there's all history of all the rapes, all the murders, all the torture, all the everything. It was just as nasty as anywhere else. And so ELF, when ELF was there, they're basically during the Haile Selassie rule. And then EPLF comes around and they're basically during the Mengistu rule. So ELF with the Haile Selassie rule in 77, Eritrea, the ELF won pretty much. Actually, they occupied all of Eritrea except for the capital. They occupied 90% of the country. They were about to win. And then Russia came in and funded Mengistu. Mengistu came from the south. This is where Menelik had conquered Oromo. So Mengistu was Oromo. Russia wanted to get rid of, they were very eager to put a non-American supporting leader in Ethiopia. They found Mengistu. Mengistu came to power. At first, it was Andamariam. Was it Andom? Is that his name? Andamariam. He's another Eritrean who was supposed to be right after Haile Selassie. So an Eritrean was about to rule Ethiopia. An Eritrean, Andamariam. I think I forgot his name. I don't know why it slipped my mind right now. I believe that's him, but he was gonna rule. He looks like Isaias Afwerki, actually, if you look at his face. But he was about to rule Ethiopia, or as he was a military man, and he was revered, he was loved, and he was about to rule. But this is when his problem was he was kind of in between it all, because he was going to Eritrea and realizing the atrocities, and he's Eritrean. He's like, this is not, why are we doing this? He didn't understand. And then, which was against what needed to be done for the American side of things, because the Kanyo station and all these listening radio stations that the Americans had in Eritrea, which is literally from where I'm at right now, is probably less than a mile away. So America needed to keep all this going on. So he wasn't quite in support. He didn't have quite the American support. The Americans weren't sure what to do with him. And then Russia wanted to get rid of him. So they supported Mengistu. Mengistu came, shot him and his little crew up. And when I say little crew, I mean that because they shot him at his house. He shot back. They all shot each other, but he ended up dying. There was a shootout at his place. So Mengistu comes in. When Mengistu comes in, Russia gives him $7 billion. This is in 1970-something, $7 billion. I don't know what that is today, 100 billion. I don't know what that is today. They gave him $7 billion, all the military, everything. This is also around the time when Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy. Well, this is a little bit later than that. I guess they did the Cuba thing later. Kennedy was probably in the 60s, right? So they did the Cuba thing first, actually not later. They did the Cuba thing first, and then Russia was implementing that same type of ideology in Ethiopia. So Mengistu comes in, he gets his money. ELF, who had owned 90% of Eritrea except for the capital, now they got to retreat. Everybody got to back all the way up. They can't take it because the ELF, not even the ELF, the Eritrean struggle is literally, this was not funded, mind you. This was only funded by, there was a couple guys in Saudi Arabia that was given certain money. The ELF used to go to certain Arab nations to get money. I forgot they had a liaison that was getting, $1 million here, $500,000 there, blah, blah, blah. Because the Saudis and all that didn't want to be officially, they wanted Eritrea to be Muslim because they want the Red Sea to be Muslim, but they didn't want to officially be seen as supporting it outright. So it was kind of like under the table money. Because the ELF was so successful. The ELF was basically, which is what the EPLF learned from, for years, they were only hitting you to take your machines. So they set up a whole, like if you had 10 tanks, they're not destroying them tanks. We're going to kill every single one of y'all, and we're going to take every single one of them tanks, and we're going to put them over here because we don't have nothing but flip-flops. My nigga, we got nothing going on. We got nothing. Zero. We can't stand y'all. That's it. All we got is the hate in our heart. That's it. So they're literally hitting and running nonstop for like 10 years, whatever. I don't even know how long. And so they were stealing nonstop guns, stealing nonstop tanks, stealing nonstop whatever. They used to put, have you ever seen in a movie, like in those old movies, like in Russia, when Russia's like the USSR, like these old movies where like Russia is fighting America and they're worried about intercontinental ballistic missiles. If you can envision one of those movies, envision that and think about one of those Russian scenes where they would have a truck and there'd be something on the back of this truck. It would look like a normal truck and then it would lift up and then there'd be like 16, 20 barrels and a bunch of rockets would shoot out. That's called a Stalin organ. Stalin, after Stalin, who took over for the czars, right? He devastated Russia, but that's a Stalin organ. And that Stalin organ, they used to cut that up, put that on a Land Cruiser and run around shooting planes off the sky. You know what I'm saying? It's that type of ingenuity was necessary because there was no money. There was no money at all. It was all heart, 100% heart. So ELF had to retreat. Mengistu got his 7 billion. ELF had to retreat. America had to retreat. Kanyo Station got shut down and all that stuff. And this is where, because of Mengistu, this is where the famine in Ethiopia and Eritrea took place. Because Mengistu was also angry because he was Oromo and he knew what happened when what Menelik did and conquered Oromo. So imagine Mengistu got all that money and there's famine because he's on some next level, kill them all shit, right? This is where We Are the World comes in. This is where you show a starving African, blah, 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 right? All of this because of war. All of this because you are putting in people designed to obliterate everything for you. Meanwhile, Russia and America are having their war, and Ethiopia and Eritrea are just pieces into it. So Mengistu killed that Eritrean guy that was going to succeed Haile Selassie. He also kills Haile Selassie. He buried Haile Selassie under his desk. From what, that's a rumor. I'm not sure if that's official, but rumor has it that Haile Selassie is buried under his desk. But when Mengistu came, the war became, everybody was like, nah. So this is where Isaias comes to rise. Isaias is 22 years old. He's 22, second in command in all of the country. And eventually they have to do another 14 years. And I think they knew around 88 or 87. I think there's a video of Isaias saying, in 3 years, we're going to have the country. He knew, like, it's official. We know. We need like 2 years, 3 years, boom, boom, boom. And he got rid of they got rid of everybody. And then they had trained TPLF. So Isaias and them were EPLF. And we had trained our brothers on the other side of the fence in Ethiopia, northern Ethiopia, mind you, who speak the same language as Isaias, mind you, or half of Eritrea. Half of Eritrea speaks one language. 30% speak another language, Tigray. So the 50% that speak Tigrinya is spoken on the Ethiopian side of the fence too. And they're in the north. They're like exactly west of us. So Isaias literally took them under his wing, or not Isaias, the EPLF organized them, helped them, and they named themselves TPLF, like EPLF. They named themselves TPLF. So with their group, the plan was for TPLF to rule Ethiopia after EPLF got Mengistu and them out, and then we can really be strong and have the region will be stabilized, and we can, live, as we were meant to live, in peace and harmony and have abundance. But TPLF eventually sold us out. And the reason why they sold us out was because of orgone energy. Orgone energy. And this is where Kemet, ancient Egypt, and everything circles back around. And orgone energy was something created by Wilhelm Reich, or not created, but documented by Wilhelm Reich, who was also abused and killed in jail and all this other stuff. Like horrible things happened to him too. He was ostracized, but Wilhelm Reich, basically they found out how to, and this is going to sound crazy, but they found out how to make it rain. I guess it doesn't sound crazy because they have articles about cloud seeding in Saudi Arabia right now. They admit that today, but the cloud seeding that they're talking about is not how making it rain works. It's a misdirection and a diversion, because orgone energy is not a special energy. It's all electrical. Everything, all weather is magnetic and electrical, if you don't know. And Wilhelm Reich was a psychologist. He was under Freud. He didn't understand. He didn't have the electrical language, the electrical engineering knowledge to properly define all the phenomena he was seeing. And they knew about all this stuff. He was the only one that just had the courage to bring it out, but he didn't understand that it was suppressed technology. And that technology found its way into Eritrea by a guy named James DeMayo. And James DeMayo basically documented, after his work in Eritrea for like 4 or 5 years, increased the rain in Eritrea tremendously, so much so that okay, so a tributary is a river underground. So when it rains, the water collects underground and it flows into whatever the main river will be. So whatever river in America or Europe or whatever, they have tributaries from rain. Rain hits the ground, they hit these underground tunnels, and these underground tunnels go into the main rivers. So this is the same thing with the Nile River. So there's tributaries all over Eritrea. When it rains in Eritrea, it flows to Ethiopia and it flows into the Nile. And then the Nile flows it all the way to Egypt. This is why the Nile flows north, all right? Because the mountainous area is south. Egypt is at sea level with the Mediterranean Sea. So during James DeMayo's work, the Nile River flows, the flow of the Nile River was so great that the Aswan High Dam filled for the first time in history. Since it was constructed, that for the first time, it filled up all the way. So much so that they had to open the channel. You know, once it fills up, you have to release the water, you know, because you don't want it to overspill, right? So they release the water that lets the water go into the open desert, to the point where it created 4 lakes, 4 separate lakes in the middle of the desert. All because the ancient Egypt technology was coming back. James DeMayo came in like 93, 4, 5, and he came by some Italians who felt bad. They know Eritrea. There's some, you know, white guilt. You know, they know Eritrea. They said, listen, man, please just go to Eritrea and make this work happen. Make it rain for them. Give them food. And our food was tremendous for like 5 years. For the Americans, that couldn't happen. So we had an American spy in our aviation department who found out about this and wrote vicious letters saying this is wrong. Da, 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 da. Next thing you know, Ethiopia attacks. So the TPLF, who we trained, sold us out because they were told to hit us. And this is why, but you know, everything comes back around. That, what's his name? I forgot his name even. What's his goddamn name? Anyway, I forgot. I don't know why I'm having a blank, or I'm drawing a blank right now. But their president, who was the head of the TPLF at the time and ruled Eritrea, he ended up getting killed. He died with like $5 billion and all that. He's sell out, all that typical stuff. And his legacy is erased pretty much. I mean, maybe in Ethiopia, they all love him, revere him, but globally, he's not gonna be whatever. But yeah, so Isaias got betrayed, the Eritrean people got betrayed, and a new game was formed, but our government doesn't necessarily know how to handle what happened per se. But I will have another video about James DeMayo, Orgone Energy, and making it rain in Eritrea and how that factored into the current state of Eritrea today. Thank you.